What's going on guys, Craig Richey back with a different sort of video today, and it's just to answer and give my view on one conception that I get asked quite a lot is, should I be doing high intensity interval training or should I be doing low intensity steady state? So we're gonna answer that question right now. So low intensity steady state exercise is where you go for long durations of time, and it's an aerobic exercise, so it allows you to breathe during it. So you could go for 60 minutes on a treadmill, you can go for a long bike ride, you can go for a long walk. Compared to high intensity interval training where you do set intervals, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, high intense anaerobic work. So there's a couple of myths around this in terms of which is best for fat loss. Okay, so let me dispel two myths. The first myth is that there's this fat burning zone. You see it on a lot of the equipment in gyms these days, and it's just the argument that fat can only be burnt in an aerobic environment. So according to this logic, that is where you should be doing low intensity, steady state to burn fat. Myth number two, there's an afterburn. So because during high intensity interval training, you ramp up your system so much that once you've finished, you're gonna continue burning calories for hours afterwards. So which argument is true? Yes, you tend to burn more calories from fat when doing low intensity steady state exercise, but the amount of calories that you burn in general during high intensity interval training is usually more, and they tend to come from fat stores towards the end. So that's one misconception. And number two, whilst intense exercise does cause an afterburn effect, the amount of calories burned afterwards is pretty insignificant. So although the fat burning zone and the afterburn are both technically true, they are both practically worthless when choosing your form of cardio. So I'm going to share my personal bias here. I'm a massive fan of high intensity interval training just because it has its practical advantages. Number one, it's time efficient. You can go in, get your high intensity interval training set done in around 15 to 20 minutes, and maybe you only need to do this 3 to 4 times a week, compared to going on a treadmill and walking or jogging at a slow pace for around 60 minutes. This takes me on to point number two. It keeps you engaged, it gives you a challenge. High intensity interval training gives you that challenge and gives you that ability to push yourself to your limit, whereas low intensity steady state, although it may push you to a limit towards the end, most of the time it's just not taxing on your body at all. This takes me on to point number three. High intensity interval training has been shown to improve athletic performance, and especially for those people out there that maybe play football, are fighters, MMA, you name it, you need that element of anaerobic ability because that is what your sport requires. So let me just throw this out there. We'll make it pretty practical. Say when you're lifting weights, say you're doing a set of 8 to 12, you're usually going to be activating the muscles for around 15 to 30 seconds. Now, if you think about high intensity interval training, where you go on intervals, set intervals, you're looking at working for around the same duration, maybe up to around a minute. So what you're doing with this high intensity interval training is you're activating the fast twitch muscle fibers, the largest muscle fibers in the body, and they can only be activated through lifting heavy weights, through aerobic exercise, and whenever you do activate these big fast twitch muscle fibers, they're primed for growth. So you think when you're doing high intensity interval training, you're actually increasing your chances of building muscle. Pretty simple, hey? But I know you're gonna say, these big bodybuilders in the gym, they're all doing low intensity, they're walking on the treadmill and they're walking at an incline. And I do get it, there is some instances where low intensity steady state is probably better. For one, it does just help burn those extra calories. So if you enjoy low intensity steady state, then I'm not saying you should do high intensity. You should go and do low intensity and burn those calories if you fancy it. But it's not gonna help with your body composition as much as high intensity interval training would. Benefit number two, low intensity steady state can be done when your energy levels are low. Especially if you're dieting for a competition, you wanna keep high intensity interval training in there for as long as possible. But when you get towards the last couple of weeks of prep, when your energy levels are super low and you feel super depleted, high intensity interval training may be too much for you and may kill you off for the rest of the day. So that's when you should probably start including low intensity steady state. And benefit number three, Low intensity steady state has a lot less risk of injury. So with this high intensity interval training, especially as you're dieting again, you do increase your risk of injury, especially when your body fat gets low. So low intensity steady state may be beneficial in terms of injury prevention. So as you can see, both methods have their pros and cons. But if it came down to me, and what I've proved with a lot of my clients in the studio, is that high intensity interval training is the best for body composition, it's the best for fat loss, and it's just the best and most engaging in general. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I'm just saying if it's my advice and you wanted my advice, high intensity interval training is the best in terms of body composition, building muscle and fat loss. I hope you enjoyed the video and hope you found it beneficial, and we will see you in the next one.